Hey, happy Monday.
Happy Monday. How's it going, Joe?
Good, good. How was your weekend?
It was good. Yeah, restful. Caught up on a few things. Good to meet you here again.
Likewise. Yeah, seems to be a ritual these days.
Right.
You came across an interesting article over the weekend that I think is going to be great for today's conversation.
Yeah. So this is an article by Ben Dickson that he posted on his own website, Tech Talks, that he founded, and also on VentureBeat. So we encountered it on VentureBeat. So we'll show you that version of it. And it's why machine learning strategies fail. And this title, first of all, really resonated with us. And then digging into the article again, there are a lot of themes here that align with what we see all the time.
I mean, it
And
was
also
kind of clickbaity, but
very clickbaity, but also very relevant, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
here,
yeah,
sorry, here's the VentureBeat one. Here's Ben Dickson's article for full credit here. So
yeah. And I mean, I think we see these various surveys saying that most machine learning projects fail right now. Hopefully, that will change eventually, but I think it's still the case right now. And this article attempts to address a lot of the reasons for that, and it actually cites a Rackspace white paper that surveys what is it, CTOs specifically, but takes surveys across a number of different
yeah,
companies about their IT strategies with respect
yeah.
to
So this
AI.
survey, it was what 18 over 1,800 respondents. Yeah, and so it's kind of a mix of different geographies, company sizes in terms of revenue sectors, pretty evenly distributed, and then job titles. So mostly IT directors, heads of IT, some CIOs, and so forth, and half of them are decision makers. I think the caveat for this is this is a Rackspace sponsored survey. So with all vendor reports, I would say maybe take the call to action with a grain of salt. But that said, I think we found a lot of these findings to I think be pretty legit, and also there's a confirmation bias angle where we see things that seem familiar, therefore we'll talk about them. So
Yeah, so maybe message us and call us out on some of this stuff if you completely disagree.
right,
So yeah, I think we both found, in addition to the survey results you can sort of get lost in if you're not careful. But I think Ben's analysis of the survey results in particular was very insightful. And again, some of the stuff resonated, some of the stuff we probably didn't completely agree with.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Let me reshare real quick and kind of go over
Yeah,
the top three findings from the survey that we can talk about how that mixes with our thoughts and what Ben thought. So the three action items stand out. Fill all skills gaps.
yep,
So skills gaps is something we've sort of beaten to ad nauseum, and think we'll keep talking about that. Another piece is address data quality. Again, something we talk quite a bit about, but it's an obvious problem. And then strategy first. This um, ends up actually becoming a pretty big theme in the survey as you go through the some of the findings here. So anyway, you know why are machine learning strategies failing?
yeah. So let's start with the skills gap. And one thing that both the survey and Ben call out is that there's just this huge shortage. And the shortage is not just in AI specific job titles like machine learning engineer. It's also very much in the back end, sort of deeper in the data supply chain, as we would say these days, in data engineering, data quality, all these foundational pieces that you need to make data work.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let's tackle the first big one. Fill the skills gap.
Yeah. And I think we have thoughts about how to attack this problem, but it's still very much a work in progress. One of the big themes for us is that you can focus on a lot of off the shelf technologies, for example, Snowflake or Google BigQuery, to make your talent go further, to allow people to accomplish more with the time that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that it's interesting when we look at the VentureBeat article or Ben
Mm-hmm.
Dickson's article about this. One quote stands out: "While the shortage of machine learning and data science talent is well known, one thing that has gone mostly unnoticed is the need for more data engineers, the people who set up, maintain, update databases, data warehouses, and data lakes." I mean, yeah, right. So it's also really hard to find these people. I think this kind of goes
Yep.
back to the build versus buy discussion that we've had. previous episodes where there's a build versus buy discussion on people. You can either buy talent or you can build the talent internally. Um, you're faced with those two options in a tight job market where it's difficult to find people. You may have to build the talent. I think this applies to anything data related, whether it's data scientist, data engineer, machine learning engineer. Obviously, we have a bias towards data engineering and ML engineering, but I don't think anything in data is exempt. It's just really hard to find good data talent at this
Yeah,
point. So,
absolutely.
mhm. And yeah, it's this has been the gap for a really long time. The skills gap, and it just doesn't seem like unless there's magically just more data talent on the market. And there seems to be in data science. I think the
Yeah.
boot camps have gone a long ways, and colleges and universities. Most of the machine learning classes are the most popular ones there. So people are graduating now with I think better data science skills, but that's not going to address your data engineering or non-data science gap.
Yeah, but I think we both kind of think in terms of, okay, if you can build a nucleus of strong people, if it's going to be very expensive to hire a huge team of extremely experienced data engineers, that's just the reality. But if you can find a few really good people who can then lead to talent development within your company, you're going to get much further in these initiatives. And again, for us, the focus is on data engineering, but it's also on using technologies that take care of a lot of these details for you.
Mm-hmm.
So like a cloud data warehouse versus using Hadoop for the same thing. In
Yeah.
terms of what your team can accomplish, you're going to get way, way more done with cloud data warehousing. And so if you can train the team up on cloud data warehousing and then build a whole infrastructure and data pipeline flow on that, then you'll get much further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of great automated tools out there that you should be
Yeah.
leveraging. I would say even if you have a big team, anything that can be automated with a turnkey solution, I think in our opinion should be. There's no glory in doing undifferentiated heavy lifting. And so if you can find turnkey solutions, like your Fivetrans or something like that, where you just plug and play, that frees you up to, focus your team on things that matter. And it's also sort of, it's interesting too. I think this article it kind of points to a back to the future moment, right? Uh, as he said, as Ben Dickson pointed out, the things that have gone unnoticed, as we talked about earlier, was more data engineers, people set these things up and then maintain systems. This is we're just in an interesting back to the future moment where all the crufty stuff from a few years ago is now in vogue again. So like data warehousing, for example, that wasn't cool for until it was cool, then it was uncool, and now it's cool again. And so and it's better, right? And but same thing with like machine learning technologies.
Yeah.
Auto ML keeps improving a ton. So if you focus on data scientists or a lack thereof, I'm not saying auto ML is a cure all for a lot of stuff, but it can get you
Right.
pretty far.
Yeah.
So.
And I think sometimes we see this sort of data science attitude or machine learning engineer attitude, like, oh, I'm too good to use anything off the shelf. But there's another way to look at that, and that's that I can take my machine learning engineers and they can get way, way more done if they just use automation for some of the basic tasks and then work on the enhancements, right? So, for example, use an off-the-shelf vision API like what Google provides, and then figure out how to enhance it to go beyond that and take the next steps. But don't like build everything from the ground up. That's just a huge consumer of resources without necessarily a lot of return.
Yeah, I would say that if you're doing that, like look in the mirror and kind of ask, why are you doing that? So, um, cool. So that's a skills gap. Anything else on that one?
I think that's it for now. Yeah, we
Cool.
talk about it almost every week, I think.
We do. I think rightfully so, right? I
Yep.
mean, we do a lot of mentoring and teaching and whatnot, and I think we see firsthand. We're trying to help the skills gap. I think we're doing our bit of community service to help that along, but um, just by sheer numbers, there's a long ways to go, and there's not really like a clear cut short term solution other than again build versus buy, automate as much as you can, right? Use something modern, cloud based. Some people might disagree with that, but whatever.
Yeah, and
So
maybe focus on certifications too. We both have a couple of cloud certifications related to data and infrastructure, and I think we both found those very valuable. there's sometimes a tendency to dismiss the certifications as just being a credential, but people walk away from those with a lot of useful skills.
Mhm. Yep. Cool. So moving on, the other big issue was just data quality, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, machine learning is all about the data. So
Yep.
I want to point out this quote here in the article from the CTO of Rackspace. I mean, data quality, data problems are just it's kind of prevalent in both startups and established companies. I do like this quote here. Startups tend to be constrained with not all the right resources to implement a quality data pipeline and consistently manage it over time. Enterprise usually have scale on their side, and with that comes the rigor that's required. We can unpack that if we want. So
Yeah, no, I mean, my take, and feel free to disagree with this, but my take was that this was something of a mixed bag with enterprises. So on the one hand, enterprises really do have more resources, right? But sometimes they create such rigid processes that they can actually slow down their data quality initiatives. So you have so much process control that it takes like 6 months to deploy a change into a
mm-hmm.
data warehouse. Meanwhile, the data scientists were like, well, I'm working on this project now, so I'm kind of going to have to go it alone. They end up kind of bypassing data engineering and being very inefficient in the process. So if enterprises can figure out how to adopt more agile processes in their data management, as in theory has happened on the development side with DevOps and agility, that should help to improve some of those problems. But it's all about leveraging those big resources that enterprises have,
Well,
as
your
opposed
big
to just,
resources, I
yeah,
think, are also your big curse, right? So
yep,
in these big
that's right,
enterprises too, you have data silos because you have silos, um, right? So if you harken back to Conway's law,
right,
companies will build systems that reflect the way you communicate. If you're siloed, you're going to have siloed systems, and then if you're trying to, one of the stats cited in the survey, I'll need to dig it up here, but
yeah,
just accessing different data sources, that was a really big issue and challenge. And if your data is siloed, you potentially have as many data quality issues as you do silos. I
yeah,
would say as many different data quality themes, 'cause you have issues within the themes. And
right,
then, top of that off, it's, I think it's a misnomer to think that enterprises have everything it takes, because they otherwise wouldn't otherwise be in these issues right now. They would
right.
just go do it, right? So I think yeah, I'm going to push back on this quote a bit in the sense where, I mean, I think, observationally, the enterprises are the ones that typically have a harder time, um, getting or modernizing their data stacks and leveraging things like machine learning. Not to say it isn't done; it's done all the time. But I would say there's just it's it's the old classic, just trying to turn the Titanic around. It's
Right.
hard.
There's a lot of institutional momentum. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even enterprise type processes like master data management, right? Master data management, very valuable, figuring out what your definitions are actually going to be, who's a customer, what's a sale, how do we define our revenue by accounting standards. The problem you run into with something like that is that it can take, again, months and months and a bunch of committee meetings to deploy a change to improve data quality because it's all hooked into master data management now.
Yeah, let me show you this slide real
Yeah.
quick. So yeah, barriers to actionable insights,
Yeah.
right? Data quality issues. Yep. Interestingly, talent gap there to
Yep.
manage the data, and then data is stored in too many systems. Inability to process data quickly, and not to act on it in time. Collate structure. I mean, these are all like classic problems. And I would say the advantage that a startup has is that you don't have a lot of these institutionalized,
Right.
or I guess you don't have this baggage, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of start from scratch because you depending on the type of product you're making for your startup, you may or may not have a lot of data, and you may or may not have data quality issues, but you can address these much sooner and fix the process before you've accumulated years and years and years of data quality issues. Hopefully you don't have too many systems where your data is stored. And if you're conscious about being data first, which is something we always recommend in nearly every one of our shows, um, you know, you've been really smart about how you're going to manage data from day one, how you're going to manage machine learning with your data from day one. And so I would say for a startup, yeah, they don't have the resources, but and they don't have scale on their side. But I think what they do have is they don't have baggage either. Like you can just start
Yeah.
fresh.
And they often have only one product that they care about, right?
Let's hope
So
so. If
say,
you're a startup, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Say you were Trello or Asana back in the day. Well, your only job was to worry about Trello or Asana, this product, this web product, and that was the only data that you really cared about.
Hmm. Yeah, and obviously, sort of like getting different product managers in the mix. That's going to start complicating itself because
Right.
everyone's got different agendas and um, if you're using microservices, let's hope that those things talk to each other. But I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's the onus is on product and engineering to figure that out. So
Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah. I mean, the article
Anything
also.
else?
Yeah, I mean, the article
Oh,
does talk about. I mean, the silos thing. Yeah, it says eliminating silos should be a key
yep.
priority in every machine learning initiative. Again, I think this kind of goes without saying, but again, I if it were that easy, everyone would be doing it,
Right.
right?
This is best
So
in class stuff, right? Like there are enterprises that are really getting it right, but it's not easy at all. It takes really exceptional leadership and exceptional teams to do that at that scale.
yeah, and exceptional willpower and everything
Yep.
else. I mean, this is a cultural change. This isn't a technology change.
Right.
Eliminating silos, um, it's it's something that does. Like, silos aren't something that gets better with time,
Yeah.
right? It's like moldy bread or something. It's not like you leave it out on the counter and it like miraculously gets better. Same with these silos and um, just processes. If you're not intentional about trying to fix these things or make them better for the sake of even just making machine learning work, but it all starts at the top. The C-suite needs to be committed, and that means the CEO first and foremost needs to be committed to breaking down silos if that's something that's going to get in the way of machine learning and just general progress, not even including machine learning. We'll ignore that for a second. But this is something we see over and over where it's, the company wants to do machine learning or, modernize their technology or data stacks. And inevitably the organizational silos get in the way and the processes, which we're going to talk about in a second. We talk about evaluating your AI strategy, which is the third part
Yeah.
of this trifecta.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, like, how can you have a successful ML or AI project if you have not properly assessed what your strategy is and determined what your desired outcomes are? But it turns out to be a huge problem. I've been on teams where we had a team of data scientists that was supposed to just make it rain, like work magic on the company and fix a lot of problems, but no clear initiative, no clear strategy. If you run into a situation like that, then you're just kind of bound for failure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, it's sad but true, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, let's find some quotes on this real quick.
yeah.
Um, one moment. Share my screen here.
Yeah, this is a great quote from the CTO of Rackspace.
Mm-hmm. Yep. AI often wanders around as a solution looking for problems, for a problem within organizations. I believe this to be one of the greatest impediments to its wide-scale adoption within organizations. Wholeheartedly agree, a thousand
Yep.
percent. Yep.
Yeah. And again, I mean, it's AI, ML have become such buzzwords. Everyone wants to be part of the cool kids club. Everyone wants to be doing this, but there's just a lot of cluelessness about what it actually means.
Well, this
So,
is an interesting tidbit in the
yeah,
Rackspace survey
yeah,
too, right? So this looks at the respondents that have uh, machine current R&D projects in place for ML,
mm,
right? Um, and what's interesting is look at this bucket here.
yeah,
They're anticipating more projects, but I'm kind of wondering, and it's not really clear in the survey, like how many of these projects have succeeded or how many of these projects have failed. Because if the results of the survey was only 20% of respondents are doing anything with machine learning, and the other 80% are still trying to figure it out. This kind of makes me wonder, okay, in this bucket here, or any of these buckets, if you're greater than one, um, like, are you trying to be too ambitious, or have you succeeded and you're just off to the races, or is a mix in between? I mean, and I get it. Failure is part of the process. And I think failure is
Right.
good, actually, because that's, the science part of data science. Like, things will fail. And in fact, all your models will fail at some point because the data changes. So it's not like we're saying that failure is a horrible thing. But I think we're both in agreement that expending large amounts of resources on things that aren't yielding value at some point is also not that bright. So,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, frankly, there's kind of a failure to manage up and manage expectations. What I've seen sometimes in the past is that executives run into key business problems in the company, things that just aren't working. And so they'll start saying, oh, just give that to the AI or ML team, like just throw it in the AI bucket without even consulting with that team, and that team coming back and saying, hey, this is what we can actually hope to accomplish in this project, coming up with an AI-based strategy as opposed to just expecting AI or ML to work magic somehow. Anytime you have those like top-down projects imposed on teams, there's a high probability of failure.
mhm. And interestingly, this is sort of ties in with this quote here.
Yeah.
Short-term financial gains can be myopic if they aren't paired with a long-term strategy that can be
Yeah.
funded by those short-term gains. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, yeah, you want to think of machine learning as something that's going to change the way your company does business fundamentally. It's like going, and I've kind of used this analogy before for other purposes, but it's like going from hand-built cars to the assembly line.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like for Henry Ford, that was just a slight enhancement to making cars. It was the core of his business strategy to really start mass producing cars. And at some point, to really be successful with machine learning and AI, you want to rethink parts of your business altogether and sort of rebuild them around this strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in retail, for example, you want to start building a retail business around recommenders and less focused maybe on a traditional taxonomy, even though, so taxonomy being organization of products, even though that part is still going to matter, think about how you can find what your customers are looking for even before they tell you what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, because it seems like, people will try and shoehorn machine
Yeah.
learning into their existing processes. And maybe it's a good time to rethink everything. I mean, this gives
Yeah.
you a fresh slate. Um, and think of other technologies too. Augmented reality. If you're an
Yeah.
e-commerce company, that's going to be a huge one coming up. Like, figure it out soon and invest the time in R&D into it and figure out how you can make this work. And um, recommenders, graph databases, all this stuff, right? I mean, there's a ton of technologies you can use off the shelf. I mean, every cloud has its own recommender at this point.
Right.
Not to mention boutique recommenders that are out there as well. And so, and that's just e-commerce, right? This doesn't include areas like supply chain, IT, anything else that can obviously benefit from ML, but it does require sometimes that you need to rethink how you're doing business
Yeah.
um, because in a lot of cases, if you're just trying to tack it into your existing process, uh, it may or may not work. I would say that ML is really appropriate for things that are high volume, high velocity, things that are too fast for a human to do and in too great of a number. And so recommending a product, for example, if you have a million SKUs or 100 million SKUs or something in your catalog, being able to recommend the right ones in your real time to your customer, like, that's value add. And that's something where machine learning can be leveraged. Um, Something that's, uh, you know, so I would probably use that as a litmus test to figure out, like, where's the best place to apply it, to maybe revamp
Yep.
a business process first. So good recommendation versus taxonomy. I think that's actually a really interesting insight, because coming up with a taxonomy and putting products into a taxonomy, that's a lot of work by a lot of people. Not saying it's
Right.
not important, but your customer's typically not going to think in terms of your taxonomy.
Exactly. They're going to think they'll have their own way of organizing whatever product they care about buying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even a modest enhancement can really enhance your business. So, for example, going to a multiple taxonomy, meaning that it's not a strict hierarchy anymore. It's like you can attach a number of different tags to something that might be related to what
Hmm.
the customer is looking for. So you
Yeah.
might say, okay, this is the style of a particular piece of furniture. This is the type of clothing, but also this is the logo that's on it and maybe the target demographic or something like this.
Yeah.
And data can help with all of this stuff where it's very, very tough for a human to do.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, because now you're gotten to like personalization where each
Yeah.
person's page on your site might be different and probably should be different because everyone is different.
Yeah.
So it's like like the Facebook newsfeed of back in the day. It just nobody had the same feed, and but I mean these are common things that I think a lot of
Right.
e-commerce people people are aware of too. It's just getting there is a um, it might be easier said than done. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of institutional momentum again. And I think a lot of this is really facilitated just by better communication. And I can't tell you the number of times where I've seen these elite data scientists who don't really understand how their company makes money, like who don't understand the business. And conversely, business people who don't understand really what machine learning is. And I think if you can open that conversation
Mhm.
and really start the synthesis of ideas, then you can come up with new ways of doing business based on machine learning. But again, just trying to shoehorn machine learning into whatever you're already doing is inherently limiting.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think, in summary, I think our take is, for the skills gap,
Yeah.
build versus buy, automate as much as possible, get rid of undifferentiated heavy lifting, so you can focus on your team on the things that are going to add the most value. Um, what else? Focus on data quality, break down silos,
Yep.
better processes, all that fun stuff, and then just take a look at your processes that you're thinking about applying ML to, and thinking, well, maybe is there a completely different way of doing this,
Right. Can you create a new internal product based on ML? Can
right?
you identify an opportunity to serve the customer better based on ML instead of just slightly turning maybe the profitability knob, which is more the traditional approach, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for enterprises.
Because
Yeah.
you do have a chance to rethink, how you're doing business.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, do you want to be, uh, I mean, think of how TikTok has its algorithm, right? Where it's
Yeah.
purely algorithm based. It's not even a recommender per se. It's based upon your other people, other people like you. It's just kind of like content that's uniquely suited to you, and you can binge watch it. And I think they did a really good job at just like rethinking the entire platform and just doing
Mhm.
something that was innovative. And obviously, it works really well. And maybe there might be something that you could reimagine in your business process that is not just going to be like incremental value, but just like completely transform.
Right. I mean, for all the problems that the Googles and Facebooks of the world and for all of the animosity toward these massive tech companies, they really did invent brand new business models after their birth as startups, right? They came up with brand new ways of interacting with customers and creating an experience. And the question is, can you somehow learn from that? Okay, you're an established enterprise, but can you rethink certain parts of your business with that inspiration and base some of your business around data in a new way?
Right. And here's the thing that should keep, an executive of, a traditional company up at night is
Yeah.
there are startups nipping at your heels that you probably don't even know about yet that are applying these techniques.
Yep.
And you might think, oh, well, they're so small right now. But it's things are changing real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think you can rest on your laurels that you were successful. Every day is a new day. And as Amazon, it puts it really well. Every day is day one. So you have to take a day one approach to, technology and data. The days of, um, you know, planning on, you doing the same stuff for the next 5 years. I mean, that's going out the window. If you take that approach, I mean, best of luck to you.
Right.
So,
Not to mention your existing established competitors. Say you have five
yep.
major competitors in your market, any one of them could hire a really talented data leader who could change their business model in a way that's going to steal a lot of your market share. And the second thing comes back to, the whole COVID pandemic. I mean, even if your business is really stable and doing really well and the competition is not too intense, the market can change very, very rapidly through all kinds of different black swan events. And if you're more agile with data, you're more prepared to respond to those kinds of events.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as we saw with COVID, I mean, you had entire business models that changed in a few months. And that change wasn't expected for several years.
Yeah.
So, but necessity is the mother invention, as a cliche goes, and it's. But as more and more startups and just more and more options of including machine learning in your workflow, just the chance of getting disrupted or disrupting yourself is I think becomes greater every day.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, cool. Well, anyway, hopefully this was useful to people, and hopefully you can start making your AI strategies and ML strategies succeed instead of fail. And hopefully we can someday, read an article that, most machine learning initiatives are succeeding, and I think that'd be an awesome day actually.
Yeah, read
So,
Ben Dickson's article. It is really great. I think it takes the survey from Rackspace and really adds a lot of insights to it. And go read their Rackspace survey as well. It's a lot of really great data coming out of a broad swath of companies.
yeah, awesome. Well, cool. Well, until then, until next time, we'll catch you later, Matt. So,
Sounds good.
all right, bye.